1 year ago, in July of 2025, I was kind of lost. I knew that I wanted to pursue making music as a career, and I knew that I wanted to compose for video games. But the problem I had was that I was way too much of a perfectionist. Anything I made wasn't good enough to be shared until I could no longer find any flaws in it. But that was an impossible task because everything I made had flaws in it, by nature of it being human-made. So the solution was just never sharing anything. Never releasing any songs, never making any music because of how afraid I was of failing and making a quote-unquote bad product. But if I did that, if I continued to only make things for myself, I would never achieve the dreams and goals I set for myself. I knew something had to change, or I'd always be telling myself, what if, what if, what if? So I decided that in the month of July, I would start writing short songs every day until I was no longer afraid of sharing something that I couldn't shape exactly to my design. At the beginning, it was difficult. I had a lot of anxiety pertaining to this, of course. Posting something, especially something I didn't have a lot of time to work on, felt like I was shoving the spotlight onto myself when I was underdressed, in a sense. For the first few days, I didn't even check the comments because of how sure I was that people were just ripping my songs apart. When I did end up checking them out of desperate curiosity, I found myself instead surprised by how kind people were, even and especially on the songs that I considered not good. So I decided to keep going until that feeling, that anxiety upon hitting post or checking comments faded away. I knew it would probably take more than a month, but I wasn't sure exactly how long. I figured that was a bridge to cross when I came to it. Then I figured out pretty quickly that while the perfectionism was slowly fading into something more manageable, the fear was still there. It was just shifting into something different. Now that I had an audience, I was trying to unconsciously shape my musical style to what I knew the algorithm would boost. I was still afraid of failing. You can see me talk about this in previous weekly updates a few times, where I realize that, again, I'm shaping my music style in a way that supports less experimentation. That's still a work in progress. Social media is an interesting, insidious drug, and I'm not naive enough to think that I can be the exception. But that also meant that I couldn't find a good stopping place that didn't feel like failure, since I was still scared. There was still room to grow. And I didn't want to stop either. I was enjoying making music. Maybe not sometimes at a daily breakneck pace, but this was the most I've composed in years. Really, ever. I've made it clear that I've been a composer for a long time, on and off for 9 years, but this challenge is more than half of everything I've made at this point. And for the first time, I had newfound confidence in what I was writing. I could finally convince myself that I was a good composer.